To crack the top 1% of all Americans, you need $13.7 million. To get ahead of 99% of people your age, you need far less than you'd guess, and it comes down to 5 decisions. Most people think getting ahead takes a better job or a bigger paycheck. The math says they're wrong. These 5 decisions separate the households that build real wealth from the 99% who don't, and everyone is something you can start this year. No raise required. Let me walk you through all 5, verified to the dollar. Here's the part almost no one tells you. When people picture the households that pull ahead, the ones sitting comfortably above everyone around them, they picture bigger paychecks, a surgeon, a founder who sold a company, someone who caught a stock at the right moment. Income is the story we've been trained to tell about wealth, but income is only the water going into the bucket. Wealth is what's left in the bucket after the year is over, and most people's buckets leak. Look at the national numbers, and a quieter story appears. In the most recent Federal Reserve survey of American household finances, only about 54% of households held any retirement account at all. Only about 1 in 5 owned a single investment outside of one. That is the real gap between the people who get ahead and the people who don't. It isn't that the top earners are doing something exotic that the rest of us can't afford. It's that most people never do the ordinary things that quietly compound. And that median household, worth around $192,000 in total, tells you how low the bar actually sits. Getting ahead of nearly everyone doesn't take a fortune. It takes doing, consistently, the handful of things almost nobody gets around to doing at all. There are 5 of them. We'll take them one at a time, and each one carries a figure you can check yourself, verified to the dollar. Meet 2 people. Darius earns $200,000 a year. By every outward measure, he is winning: the salary, the title, the lifestyle that comes with them. Andre earns $70,000, barely a third of what Darius takes home. Ask almost anyone which of these 2 ends up wealthier, and they'll point at Darius without a second's hesitation. They will be wrong. Here's why. Darius saves 5% of what he earns. That's $10,000 a year, a completely ordinary number for a high earner who also carries a high earner's expenses. The bigger house, the nicer car, the lifestyle that always seems to expand to swallow the raise. Andre saves 20%. On his smaller salary, that comes to $14,000 a year. Sit with that for a moment. Andre, earning less than half of what Darius earns, is quietly setting aside more money every year than the man who out-earns him 3-to-1. Now let it run. 30 years, and, this matters, the exact same 7% return for both of them. Neither one is a better investor. Neither one got lucky. The only difference is how much of their income they kept. After 30 years, Darius has roughly $945,000. Andre has just over $1.3 million. Andre finishes $377,000 ahead on a third of the salary. I know how that sounds. The man earning $200,000 loses to the man earning $70,000. Let me earn it. The engine of wealth in the early decades is not your return, and it is not your salary. It is the gap, the distance between what you earn and what you keep. Darius has an enormous shovel, and he's barely digging. Andre has a small shovel, and he never stops. This is the trap almost every high earner falls into. Think about what usually happens with a $10,000 raise. The bigger paycheck feels like permission. A slightly nicer apartment, a car payment that creeps upward, a few more subscriptions, dinners out that used to be occasions, and are now just Tuesdays. Within a year, the raise has been absorbed completely, and the amount actually saved hasn't moved at all. The income went up, the gap stayed flat. That's how a person can earn more every year for a decade and still have almost nothing to show for it. And here's the number that should end the argument. For Darius to catch Andre without saving $1 more, to close that gap through investing skill alone, he would need to earn almost 9% every single year for 30 years. He'd have to beat the market by nearly 2 full percentage points without one bad year for 3 straight decades. That is a fantasy. Saving more of the money he already makes is a decision he could make this afternoon. A raise doesn't build wealth, the gap does. Ryan carries $8,000 on a credit card at 22% interest. And Ryan spends his evenings doing something a great many people do. He researches investments. He hunts for a fund, a stock, a strategy that might return 8%, maybe 10. He is trying with real effort to make his money grow, while $8,000 of it shrinks in the other direction every single month. Let's look at what that card actually costs him. At 22%, an $8,000 balance throws off $1,760 in interest in the first year alone, just to stand in place before he pays down a single cent of what he owes. If Ryan makes a $200 payment every month, it takes him just over 6 years to clear the balance, and along the way, he hands the card company about $6,500 in interest. He pays for that debt nearly twice and gets nothing the second time. Now here's the reframe that should change how Ryan spends his evenings. The moment he pays that card off, he earns a guaranteed 22% return. Guaranteed, not projected, not hoped for, not dependent on a good year in the market. Locked. There is no fund on his screen that can promise him anything close to that. Every investment he's researching carries risk. The payoff carries none. And it's actually better than it looks, because debt is repaid with after-tax dollars. For an investment to beat a 22% guaranteed payoff after tax, it would need to return almost 26% before tax every year reliably with no risk of loss. That investment does not exist. Not on his screen, not anywhere. So the highest certainty, highest return move available to Ryan isn't out in the market he searches every night. It's sitting on his own monthly statement. If he's carrying more than one balance, the rule is just as clean. Attack the highest interest rate first because that's where the guaranteed return is largest. One caution, so no one takes this too far. Not all debt is the enemy here. This logic applies to high-interest debt. Credit cards, payday loans, anything sitting in the high teens or 20s. A 3% mortgage or a low-rate student loan is a different animal entirely. Paying those down early is a preference, not an emergency, because the guaranteed return you'd lock in is small, and you may do better keeping the money invested. The rule is about the rate, not about debt in general. Where the interest is punishing, the payoff is the best guaranteed return you will ever find. Where it's cheap, the urgency fades. The best investment on Ryan's screen was never a stock. It was the 22% debt he'd been trying to ignore while he looked for something better. Jake and Marcus work the same job, earn the same $70,000 salary, and have access to the same workplace retirement plan. Marcus contributes 6% of his pay, $4,200 a year. His employer matches half of it. That's $2,100 a year the company simply hands him for doing nothing more than participating. Jake doesn't bother. Maybe the enrollment form felt like a chore. Maybe he told himself he'd deal with it once things settled down. Things never settled down, and the form stayed unsigned. Let's be precise about what Jake gave up because it's larger than it sounds. That match is an instant 50% return on every matched dollar, before the market lifts a finger. Not 50% someday. 50% the moment the money lands in the account. There is no investment on earth that reliably does that, and Jake had it offered to him with every paycheck and said no by saying nothing. And then it compounds. Over 30 years at 7%, the match that Marcus collected and Jake left behind grows to just under $200,000. Read that again. Jake didn't lose $200,000 in a market crash. He didn't make a reckless bet that went bad. He simply never claimed money that was already his, part of his own compensation, offered freely, declined by default. That match is not a bonus and not a gift. It's a piece of his pay he chose not to pick up. And because it grew inside a tax-advantaged account, it compounded year after year untouched by taxes along the way. And it's worth saying plainly, even a smaller match is worth claiming. A quarter match, a match capped at 3% of pay, whatever a given plan offers, it is still free money and still an instant return no market can guarantee. The only truly wrong move is the one Jake made, which is to leave it sitting there entirely untouched. $200,000 is a house in much of this country. It was on the table the whole time with Jake's name printed on it, waiting for a signature that never came. Now for the least exciting decision on this entire list. There's no clever trade here, no secret account, no tax maneuver, no insight the professionals are hiding from you. The entire decision is to do nothing, and it will out-earn nearly every stock pick you make in your life. Meet Josh and Sam. Both begin with $100,000 invested. Both hold steady through a few good years, and then the market does what the market always eventually does. It falls. In the scenario we're walking through, it drops 30% in a single year. This is the moment that decides everything. Sam watches his account lose nearly a third of its value and does the single hardest thing in all of investing? Absolutely nothing. Josh can't stomach it. He sells at the bottom, moves his money to the safety of cash, and promises himself he'll get back in once things feel calm again. But things don't feel calm for a long while, and that is precisely the trap. By the time Josh feels safe enough to return, the recovery has already happened without him. In this scenario, the two strongest rebound years pass by while his money sits idle in cash, earning nothing. He buys back in later and at higher prices, then rides the same steady returns Sam was collecting the entire time. 30 years in, Sam has just under $680,000. Josh has about $435,000. Sitting out one crash and the rebound that followed it cost Josh $244,000. 36% of everything he could have had. Now, a word of honesty, because this channel runs on it. Those exact figures come from one specific modeled path. A single crash, 2 missed recovery years. Change the depth of the drop, or the strength of the rebound, and the number moves. But the direction never does, and that's the entire point. The investor who flinches almost always loses to the investor who waits. Because the market's best days have a cruel habit of arriving right on the heels of its worst ones, while the nervous money is still parked in cash. Josh didn't lose that money by picking the wrong stock. He lost it by flinching at the worst possible moment. The market paid Sam for his patience and charged Josh for his panic. That is the whole decision. Time in the market beats timing the market, and the boring choice wins. The final decision is about a cost you will never once see on a statement, charged by someone who will smile the entire time he's charging it. Picture the meeting. A polished man in a well-cut suit slides a document across the desk and taps a single line near the bottom. A 1% annual fee. 1%. It sounds like a rounding error. It sounds like nothing at all, and he is counting on it sounding like nothing. So let's do exactly what he's hoping you won't. Let's run it. 2 investors each set aside $10,000 a year for 30 years. The first earns 7%, the second earns that same 7%, but hands over 1% every year to the man in the suit, netting 6. That single percentage point is the only difference between them. Everything else is identical. After 30 years, the first investor has just under $945,000. The second has $790,000. That quiet 1% removed $154,000 from her account. 16% of everything she built, gone. And here is the part that should make you sit up. She never wrote a check for it. No bill ever arrived in the mail. It was skimmed a sliver at a time, so smoothly and so silently that she never once felt it leave. That is the entire genius of the percentage fee. It doesn't feel like a cost. It feels like the ordinary price of doing business. But $154,000 is not the price of doing business. Put it another way, that sum is what her own money would have grown into if it had stayed invested instead of being handed away a slice at a time. She didn't just lose a fee, she lost every future dollar that fee would have earned for her, and the alternative was never hidden. A plain index fund charges a fraction of that, often less than 1/10 of 1% for the very same market return. The man in the suit is not your advisor. On that number, he is the single most expensive expense you will ever carry. Read the fine print he's hoping you'll skip. So what happens when one household makes all 5 of these decisions? They save a real share of their income instead of waiting on the next raise. They wipe out their high-interest debt and pocket the guaranteed return. They claim every dollar of the employer match. They hold through the crash instead of flinching. And they refuse to quietly bleed 1% a year to a man in a suit. Put all 5 together, picture a household setting aside $12,000 a year. No windfall, no inheritance, No six-figure salary required, just steady decisions made consistently. 30 years at 7%, with none of it skimmed away in fees. That household ends with just over $1,130,000. Now measure that against the country. The median American household net worth sits around $192,000. Our 5-decision household ends with nearly 6 times that, and clears the top 10% threshold for its age group along the way. It does this without a single raise, without a hot stock, without one lucky break. Look closely at those 5 decisions and you'll notice something. Not one of them required earning more money. Every one of them required deciding better. That's the uncomfortable truth the man in the suit and the guru with the course would rather keep complicated. You do not have to out-earn 99% of people to end up ahead of them. You have to out-decide them. And here is why so few ever do. These decisions are quiet. They're unglamorous. There's no rush of excitement in signing an enrollment form or holding still through a crash. So the vast majority of people skip them. More than half never even open a retirement account, which is exactly why the small number who follow through end up standing so far in front of everyone else. None of this was complicated. That's the part that should stay with you. There wasn't a single equation here you couldn't work out on the back of an envelope, and there wasn't one strategy reserved for people with more money than you. 5 decisions, each one available to you this year, each one verified to the dollar. The reason they put 99% of people behind you isn't that they're difficult. It's that they're quiet and easy to postpone until a later that never quite arrives. The people who build real wealth simply stopped postponing them. If you want to run these numbers against your own life, your income, your savings rate, your timeline, your debt, that's exactly what we build inside the Wealth Logicians community. Every tool in there is built the way this video was built. Verified to the cent, no hand-waving, no hype. You'll find the way in down in the description. Whatever you decide to do next, do the math first. It's on your side far more often than anyone selling you something wants you to believe.